in Tunisia. Lawmakers there are poised to take a final vote on a newly drafted constitution. It's just over 3 years now since the revolution in Tunisia, which kicked off the wave of uprisings around the Arab world. Tunisia was the first country in the region to overthrow its autocratic ruler, Zine al Abidine Ben Ali. He left the country in early 2011. Well, since then, the moderate Islamist Ennahda party took a majority in parliament, and the country subsequently was paralysed politically. There were assassinations of left-wing and opposition figures and more huge demonstrations. Well, the signing of this new constitution is part of a deal to put Tunisia back on the road to democracy. Elena Casas explains more.
3 years after the uprising that sparked the Arab Spring, a democratic breakthrough for Tunisia. After months of heated debate between Islamist party Ennahda and secular groups that spilled over into street violence, agreement on 146 articles of a new constitution.
I think that each Tunisian can recognise themselves in this constitution. I think that today we've really succeeded in finding the necessary consensus.
The charter now needs to be submitted to a vote on Saturday. A technocrat interim government will then be formed after Ennahda resigned to break the political deadlock. The constitution needs a 2/3 majority to pass. Failing that, it will be put to a referendum. MPs hope it can unite the divided country.
This augurs well. I hope this constitution will be voted by more than 2/3. Why not with 90% of the assembly?
Interim Prime Minister Mehdi Joma must then pilot Tunisia to parliamentary and presidential elections by the end of the year. No easy task when a weak economy and high unemployment provide a fertile recruiting ground for Islamists.
All right, well, to talk more about this now, I'm joined from Tunis by Amna Galali, a Middle East and North Africa researcher for Human Rights Watch. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on France 24. Now, this constitution, this new drafted constitution in Tunisia, has been described as the most progressive in the Arab world. Do you agree with that?
I think this constitution, its very truly revolutionary aspect is in the process that led to its adoption, meaning that there was a national constituent assembly with an inclusive participation from different parties across the political spectrum. There was also participation in a at a very important stages of the constitution from the civil society groups, from human rights organizations that made important contribution to the content in order to improve the safeguards for human rights and freedoms inside this constitution. And I think the outcome and the result of this process, which was very important for renewing the links between Tunisians and the state and the power sharing, is quite interesting, because it upholds indeed key political, civil, social and economic rights and cultural rights. And there are quite strong safeguards against a return to the dictatorship and to the authoritarian regime by establishing new institutions that will lead to more respect for, the distribution of power and the separation of powers and rule of law in Tunisia.
We've got guarantees in there, articles in this constitution guaranteeing gender equality. It's also not based on Islamic law as the basis of legislation. Given that, do you think that conservative Islamist elements in Tunisia will accept it, or are we going to see more unrest because of these elements?
I think the debates that have taken place inside the National Constituent Assembly and also outside show that all the political actors and other representatives in the Tunisian society have come to an agreement, to a consensus on the most important aspects of this constitution and on the basic bedrock principles that will form and they lay the foundation for the future. And I think they have quite well managed two visions of the society that were separated by a big, gap and chasm. However, they could agree on a consensus formulation. For example, the constitution at the same time upholds these key civil, political, and economic rights, but also states that the religion is also important throughout the constitution. Although it's not Sharia law, and although it's not the state, the religion of the state is Islam. This was not included in the new constitution. However, there are references to religion. There are references to Islam as one of the foundation for the country and for the society. And I think this could be satisfactory also for the conservative wing, and the conservative
the elements in society. But that's the political side. What about on the streets of Tunisia? Do you think it will satisfy people, or could we see more people taking to the streets?
I think the situation was risked to be derailed for a long time, and during several successive crises, such as political assassination, social unrest, and the security situation was also very difficult. However, I think the situation right now is quite stable and will be more stable with the new government that will, a new technocrat government that will take power, I think, in the next few days. And although the constitution is a bit remote from the daily lives of Tunisians, they also listen to all the debates and follow them on the TV, like direct showing of the TV from the debates at the National Constituent Assembly. This has indeed raised a lot of expectations and a lot of attention in the Tunisian society, although the daily life is sometimes really very far from the constitution principle.
Absolutely. I mean, poverty does remain a very big issue for Tunisia, especially in central or southern parts, and especially for young people. Do you think that these underlying problems could undermine whatever political progress is made?
It is absolutely important for the new government and for the new rulers to understand that all these grievances that have prompted all the youth and the young people and all the downtrodden in Tunisia to take to the streets are still there. So the underlying problems are still there, and even it became even more problematic and serious because of the unemployment, because of the high rate of poverty that has increased since the fall of the regime, because the economic situation is very dire. So they have to address these issues, and obviously this will not take, they don't have to wait until the constitution will be, entering into force. They have to address that immediately.
Now, if this constitution, when it's put to the assembly this weekend, if it doesn't get a 2/3 majority by lawmakers voting on it, it will go to then a popular referendum. Would you welcome that move?
Well, I think the popular referendum would be a bit risky, because there is a risk also that the constitution will not be accepted. And this will obviously, again, set the country into a very big crisis. However, I think from what I gather from the different political actors and the feel inside the National Constituent Assembly with regard to the constitution is that it will likely pass the 2/3 majority. Most of the articles were passed with quite a comfortable majority. There were quite contentious articles, those relating to the independence of the judiciary, to the role of religion, to also the freedom of conscience. However, I think they have overcome now the contention and the discussion, and I think that it will likely be voted upon with a quite comfortable majority.
And a final question for you. Are you feeling optimistic? Do you feel optimistic about the future for Tunisia now?
I think we have overcome the very dangerous moment of at the height of the political crisis, when nothing seemed to be possible anymore, when the democratic transition was in a really bad situation and in tatters. However, there are still underlying problems like poverty, like economic crisis, like the security situation, and the lack of very deep and thorough reforms for the security sector, for the judiciary, that could also, again, put the country into unrest. However, there are also good signs now that this will likely not be the case if the constitution is adopted and if there is a new government that will set the country again on wheel.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, though, for giving us your perspective there. That's Amna Galali, a Middle East and North Africa researcher at Human Rights Watch. You are watching live from Paris. Stay tuned. We're going to have the very latest international news in just a few minutes' time.